Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PTBO Housing Show. If you're new to the show, we're here every week talking about housing statistics, local politics, provincial politics, housing economics in regards to our federal and sort of global macro situation. And we're following news headlines, and we're trying to translate how that affects you as a home buyer or seller in this market to help you make more informed decisions. We're going to go through the 1 week right now, talk a little bit about the macro picture of the interest rates, and then going to dive into a bit of a local issue here this week that I want to talk to everybody about. So starting off on the 7-day, we've got 99 new listings on in the last 7-day period. As of the time that I shoot this, which is Tuesday, June the 21st, we have 58 pending listings. So if everybody remembers last week, the number of net new listings that I posted was significantly higher. I'm going to quickly flash back to it here for everybody. 70. We had 70 net new listings last week, and that was the highest number I'd seen in 2022 in any period. And this week we're back to closer to around 40. So week over week basis, just tracking this as something to try and keep a pulse on how quickly new inventory is coming on and whether our rate of new inventory is absolutely rising or whether the rate that it's rising at is starting to decline, indicating that we might see a bit of a plateau and that our inventory might start to settle out again and get a bit tighter. As of right now, net of 40 new listings in the week, still a healthy amount of inventory being added on, not quite at the same rate as last week, but nonetheless, if it carries on, again, we're still cruising into a more balanced market at this point in time. 50 price decreases and 11 price increases within the 7-day period. Lots of obviously that shows how everybody's jostling around. People coming on that aren't holding offers. There was a slide deck from our brokerage that went through this week that showed that it's down to about 50% of the properties that are being listed that are or aren't holding offers. That's the sort of the split now, whereas before, of course, everybody's holding offers. A matter of months ago. So when people come on now at a certain list price, they're back to the old game, old school real estate of, hey, are we on the mark or do we come on too high and we've missed this dropping market? So 50 price decreases in a 7-day period. Showing activity is way down. We're seeing it through the statistics we've got through showing time, and we're just feeling it. Every listing we have, listings that we would have used to expect to get, 30, 40 showings in a week. Now it's a lot of times not even in double digits. So it's significantly reduced. Now we're into summertime, so people are starting to think about things other than real estate and about to take a bit of a breather, take some vacation. So we're expecting showing activity to be down a bit, but it is down quite drastically. So that's something we're going to keep an eye on as time goes on. 75-point rate hike from the Fed. This stuff, obviously, it's funny to me now how often everybody talks about interest rates. Maybe it's just the bubble that I'm in, but it seems, I don't know, if, for lack of a better word, ubiquitous that everybody talks, if whatever's going on with interest rates, it's like people talk about the score of the Jays game now. I'm in circles where you can't go too far without somebody saying, a 75 basis point rate hike coming up. And the reason I bring that up is because, it's anticipated that the Bank of Canada, its July meeting, is likely going to do the same, bare minimum, another 50 basis point rate hike, but more than likely 75 basis points. But I have to think that this stuff is already baked into the market because everybody mentally is already internalizing that it's going to happen. So everyone's like, what's going to happen once that rate hike hits? Wait for the 75, like some big, nuke bomb's going to go off in July right after that announcement, and things are going to change even further. But it's my opinion that I don't think they are, because I think so many people are really, really hyper aware of what's going on out there right now, and real estate's a bit of a national Canadian obsession, and so those who are really in the game and thinking about buying or selling whether or not that 75 basis point rate hike happens, whether it's 50 or 75, people mentally already, it's already in the sentiment and in the buyer psychology out there. So I think effectively it's already taken place. And same with the further rate hikes that are coming down the pipes in the next couple of months. I think that people are already starting to see, okay, the bank said they're going to do this. They're following through to some degree, and people are just automatically assuming that the rate that it is today is not going to be the same as tomorrow. So that's where the wait and see approach comes in. They want to know, what kind of payment am I settling into here if I take a variable rate? So enough on that stuff. I want to get to a topic here that we're going to dive into deeper in some interviews in the coming months. And you might see some stuff come across my feed for it in regards to homelessness, because we're talking about housing all the time. Housing is a continuum. It goes right from the luxury side all the way down to those who are on the brink of not being able to afford home ownership, and then to those, of course, that are on the outs at this point already and don't have a home. So I was part of a great, very informative, very interesting meeting recently with this group called PATH. So Peterborough Action for Tiny Homes here in Peterborough. And, this is a fairly well-organized group who's been investigating this stuff for some time, and they're trying to emulate a model for a tiny home plan that they have seen some success in Austin, Texas, if I'm quoting things correctly here. That there's a great documentary, it sounds like. If anybody wants to get looped in and watch an educational version of that, they have a token for that. I haven't seen it yet myself. I'm going to dial into that soon. But basically, they're looking at copying a template for a tiny home site to get people off the streets, because we all know, anybody who's grown up in Peterborough knows how much the downtown has changed in the last few years. Obviously, the cost of living's gone up, the opioid crisis, and this is not a problem unique to us. This is something I'm gonna probably have a guest on the show here shortly. We got some family down visiting that's from the Salt Lake City area, and as we were talking over dinner there last night, it was very funny to see that this individual runs a radio show, not a podcast, and not like me, not shooting this out of their basement. They're running a real radio show and is very up on the local happenings in Utah, and told me that the problems there are the exact same. People want to paint Peterborough with a bad brush, or any of the areas around here, Oshawa, you name it. But what's going on here is going on all throughout North America. There is, really hard synthetic, drugs and opioids circulating through our populations, and they're getting a hold of people, and the cost of living, not to mention, aside from any addiction issues, is absolutely crazy, and people are falling into homelessness at a quicker rate, it seems, than any time in our in my life anyhow. So working towards solutions. This is a really big code to crack, and a lot of people are starting to put their minds towards, how do we solve the homelessness issue here. And this group here, PATH, has really been working towards studying this problem and how others have dealt with it, I guess internationally, you could say. And they're coming down the home stretch on working on something. And up until this point, their biggest hurdle was land. And there is been quite a remarkable proposal, I suppose you could say, that's been put on the table, where the owners of a significant piece of land at the corner of Park and Lansdowne, you'd be familiar with it as being the old malt building there that's been demolished, have basically offered up their land. So this is a huge development, and this is really going to be, as long as we keep it alive, it could be on the front lines of something that's in front of council, city council, over the coming months. We're into an election year, so there's going to be a lot of shuffling going on. It's going to be interesting to see if we, the public can bring this to the forefront, see how anybody stands on this. You guys have seen that I interviewed Stephen Wright and Henry Clark, the two sort of running mates there for the mayoral position, and I'm gathering that they both have different positions on this issue and the way to deal with potentially housing the homeless. But this exact thought of tiny homes and them potentially being placed as a community on the corner of Park and Lansdowne, land that's not currently being used, in terms of having some sort of regenerative community there and using this as a hub site to take people from across the spectrum of the degree towards which one might be geared towards getting retooled and getting back into society. Obviously, we have some people that are further on the on the outs, more deeply disenfranchised, so to speak, and we have others that are just on the edge of being able to get themselves up and running and being self-sufficient within society. And this group of PATH is looking at housing people across that spectrum, and this plan, this proposal, is really starting to come together, where they're actually working on a prototype tiny home that they're going to be starting to tow around town. And this is a pretty interesting thing where, hey, I want to know, what do you guys think? We really do want some feedback on this. I'm going to try and help this group out a little bit over the coming months to push and develop this thing. The next real logical stepping stone here is to get a site plan in place. That costs money. It's going to take time. And it would be potentially developed around the site that we're talking about at the corner of Park and Lansdowne there, to really get a concept up and running about how this site could be phased, how the size of homes, the spacing, the layout of any communal areas, and then further into a business plan about how do you staff this thing, what is the sort of the 5-year staffing projection, to come up with a working business model on this thing, so that we can pitch it and get a zoning change on this plot of land. It's currently zoned as industrial. You're going to need a zoning change. Going to need the city council all on board for this, and we want everybody to think of this as, hey, this is a legitimate idea that could really get off the ground here if it gets some support. So I want to know what you guys think. What's your gut feel on that site and this whole proposal? People might say, hey, this is not the right location for that. It's too close to thing X, Y, Z. You can come up with any type of reason you want to dismiss it, but whether or not this is the perfect site or not, we have a very generous offer on the table with this piece of land, and whether or not it gets dealt with in this capacity, it exists. The problem's already there. Whether or not we acknowledge it or deal with it, or how we deal with it, or how long we take to do anything, if it doesn't get dealt with in some manner, then the way that it exists currently continues, and that's simply people sleeping downtown on the streets. So let me know what you guys think. With a little bit more wind at the sails here, we could really push this thing and start to do some fundraising in a very serious manner. Visually for me, I'm looking at the next couple increments would be, getting some form of well-organized, phased crowdfunding, like a GoFundMe, up on the go here, where we get some funds in place to essentially get a site plan together. Of course, we would love some pro bono work from any local drafts people who want to step on and latch onto this thing here. But we need some real construction estimates to take place, some site planning, and some business modeling. All this stuff is going to take some individuals' time. Of course, they're relying on a heavy amount of volunteer work. But nonetheless, if we can get some money in the kitty here to pay professional services to really get a working plan together here, obviously the more legitimately that this is laid out, the more chance that we could actually make something happen. But hey, none of this can happen if it doesn't have the consensus of the people and the goodwill of the basically the populace of Peterborough. So let me know what you guys think. How does that plan sit with you? Let's get some initial feedback. Let's try and get the dialogue going. And this is an issue that we're going to talk about in coming weeks. So thanks everybody for tuning in this week. Let's chat. It's not just about housing for investors. It's not just about housing for first-time buyers. It's about housing for everybody. And it's housing and homelessness, all part of one big topic about housing. And hey, it's the PTBO Housing Show, so this fits into the criteria of things that I'm interested in talking about. So let's keep this conversation alive. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and I will look forward to catching up with you in the comments on the YouTube video. If you're on the podcast and you want to dive in and get on the dialogue of this, please flip over to YouTube, find this video, and jump in the chat, and let's get some real discourse going. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next week.